Welcome in, everyone. This is our flow recap for the week of 3/17/2025 to 3/21/25. Little shorter week. We had FOMC, so kind of the beginning of the week was a little slower, so not going to be a super long video, but we have some really good examples. We had a really good week as well. So let's get started in here. And again, for anybody that's new that may be joining, I like to show everybody just kind of how the flow gets posted in Stock Hub. So all of our flow kind of comes in real time. Everything's posted in real time. I don't edit or change anything. Our flow and charts plays, we had two flow and charts plays, but one of them actually moved pre-market. So we had APP, that thing gapped down, so we couldn't trade that one. Meta was a tradable one, which we'll go over, but that was a very good play. So again, I like to kind of just show everybody that hasn't been in the group before. I don't edit anything. Everything's live posted, all that stuff. So let's get started here. And as always, just if you enjoy these videos, please hit that like, subscribe, share the video. It helps other people that want to learn how to properly read flow to actually read flow. So let's finally get started here. So first up on 3/17, we had the 3/21 QBTS call. So let's go take a peek at this one. Let's move this back to 3/17. So we had a really good piece of flow here. So you can see here's our whale, candle volume 5,195 at 55 cents a contract for a total of 284,000 on that one. So this one, you had multiple times to kind of take some profit on this one. So 55, you can see these red candles here, and I actually want to come down here and touch on the open interest here. You can see we had 19,000 candles traded on, or contracts traded on the day, and we only had about 7,000. So this whale did close intraday. So keep this in mind. So here's that original entry. These came up and actually hit a high of 95 on the day. You can see that spike towards close here. So 95, that's going to give you that spread. And we're going to go over the max range of the contract too. So you're not expected to exit at the top. You're more than likely not going to. Always adjust stops up just to kind of capture as much profit as you can, though. That's what I like to do. So you can see these red candles here. So that whale's coming in here, and these were filled at 55. So that whale looks like they were cutting at 50, 52, 50, and 45. So that's really strange to me. So that whale actually sold those for a loss. But these came up and hit that 95. So that gave us a 72.73% return on those. And I just want to kind of zoom out here as well, too, and just show the full week. So that's your full week, and again, this is why it's important to kind of adjust your stops up too, because you don't know what can happen with that specific piece of flow. Next day, it still would have been green a little bit, but for the most part, if you keep swinging, especially on weeklies with high theta, contracts are going to depreciate fast. So that was QBTS, so those contracts running from 55 to a max of 95, that is 72.73% on those. Alright, so up next we have the FXI. Again, another good example here, the 331.38 5s. It's only going to show, it doesn't show the full trade here, because what I like to do, I'll kind of show everybody here as well. So let's go back to 317. So when I look at the flow, you're always going to be looking at that raw flow feed here too. So what I'm looking for is that IV spike when that flow comes in. So you can clearly see here you have that big spike in size and premium here. So your IV spiking going all the way up and your spot is increasing. So that is a good sign there. That's a sign of a buy. So I just save them here, and you can always access your save flow up here in your little save list. That's where you're seeing all the flow that we're covering here. And this one, again, we saw that flow there. So you saw 8,895 total contracts at 79. These hitting a high of, let's see, where are we? So the 17th, these hit 107 on the day. So I have it set at 80 to 110 here. So that's a 37 return intraday. And this whale exited the same day. You can see, again, 8,895 contracts there, 8,875 there. Again, reflected in the open interest, volume and open interest. We had 18,000 on the day, only 300 carried over. That was in and out same day. Whale closed those at 99, almost at the high of the day. And when we look at that raw flow here, you're not going to be able to see much because it looks like they closed everything at, well, actually, it ended up becoming multi-leg here. So going to kind of pass because multi-leg stuff can get a little funky here, and I don't want to confuse a bunch of people, but you can see it's 48% now. So that whale did end up turning that into some sort of spread. I'm not a spread trader. I'm not a spread expert, so I don't want to dive into that and confuse people or myself. But nonetheless, this flow made a nice move as well. So from 0.80 to 110, that is a 37.5% return there. Amazon put sells. So again, let's go back here. So here's your put sell. 3,500 contracts, 231. So when you're selling calls and puts, you essentially want those contracts to go to zero. So they're trying to collect premium here. And again, you can kind of see that in the volume here. I mean, clearly opening those. You can see all of that carrying over. And when we look at the flow here, so this is the opposite of a buy. So you can see that IV decreasing now on the way down. And you can see that spot price coming in pretty close to the ask, also decreasing on the way down, so that is a good sign of a sell there. And this whale, so open them at 231. These have to get recapped a little bit different because sometimes, I mean, you have 41 days. They're trying to collect that premium there. So that whale, we'll just kind of look at what they're at here. We have another sell a little later on that's not going to be as clear, but 231 here, and they're running at about 185 right now, so that whale's collected about 19% of that premium there. So let's move on here. So another one, if you would have took that for maybe a bounce or sold some premium, should be looking good on that one. So up next we have the 4-4 BABA 149 calls. We have, so we can see this one again. So this is again why I always tell people you have to have your own plan going into trades following whales because sometimes they do not make the right choices. But so these ones we had 681 contracts at 531 come in for 361,000. And let's take a peek at that flow. So again, you can see as that flow starts to come in, past that multi-leg one here. So when those repeated hits start coming in, you see that IV pop. You can see we're coming in at the ask on, or the spot, which is the fill of the contract, coming in at the ask here. So our flow coming in there, looking good there. And let me come back here to the 17th. And I want to also touch on, let's see, 17th. So again, you look at the 17th, that's our flow, clean opening flow. Obviously, you can see just based on that math with the volume to the open interest, it was an opening trade. I always like to look at the net premiums here on the side, and obviously that net call premium was up, call volume was up. And these actually moved nice intraday here. So we hit, so these were 525, and these actually came up and hit a high of 675 the same day. So you can see 525 looks like 657 up here, 664. So I mean, you're at the high of the day for majority of the day there. And I like to look for at least about 10-15% minimum for a return. If I'm at 10%, again, I still like to have stops on. 10% still a good return, especially in a volatile market like this. Break even stops at 10%. You're at 15%. I like 5%. And obviously, you keep adjusting up stops. There's people that are a lot quicker too. So, I mean, you can adjust stops up quicker to secure the most profit. But again, something like this where you have a lot of time up here, you should be collecting more than like 10%. But these contracts, again, running from that 525 to 647 or 675 for a high here on the 17th, that gives us max return of 28.57%. So another nice intraday move here. And I do want to touch on one more part of that. Let me come back to it here, the BABA calls. So this is why it's important to actually have a plan, because there's your whale entry, 681 contracts. Come over here, 602 on Friday yesterday. More than likely, this whale's selling these for a loss at 88. So again, this is why it's important to kind of have stops up and be smart. If you're up big intraday and you still have time on your contracts, take profit. There's nothing wrong with taking profit. That's how I look at it there. But so this whale's selling for a loss after a gain, but contracts ended up hitting that 28%. So let's move on here. I'm not going to dive into each one super deep. I'm just going to kind of hit on the ones that maybe stick out a little bit more. So RGTI, these expired yesterday. So again, another one where you should be kind of adjusting up stops. I'm going to pop this back to the 17th. So here's your entry, 4,000 contracts, 34. You can see we ran up here, 39. We hit 41 there, 39, 39. So you're hitting 41. So now, again, I always look at percents. You might think, oh, that's only $7. That's 20% on the contract from 34 up to 41. That's a 20% return. That's a big return. So those slower movers like that, obviously, those percent changes on the contracts are a little bit quicker. So, I mean, you have a 7-cent move on the contract. That's 20% right there. Versus something that's a $500 contract and you get a $5 move, that's not even close. So keep in mind you're looking at percents. You want to keep an eye on percents. But this whale, let me come back to Friday now. And when we look at this, you can see a majority of that carried over, but it's like a lot of it kind of ended up dropping. So again, we don't always know what these whales are doing, or their full plan or their full trade. They could be buying calls and selling shares. They could be selling shares or buying calls. So it's always expected to use some caution with this kind of stuff. But I mean that hit the high here. I mean, 1, 2, about 3 times there. So enough time to get out, especially if you miss it the first time or so. But those running from 34 to 41, that's a 20.59% game. Let's look at Victoria's Secret here. This was a nice one here. Again, 3,103 contracts, 124, 384,000. See most of that carrying over into 318. Big run up here. These hitting a high of 270 here on the 20th. Giving us 117.74% return there. And again, just kind of looking at that net call premium too. This doesn't get a lot of action. And then you see that big spike here on the 20th as well. That's a good sign. Really good sign. Especially when you get something that's not like that. But there's a different way to read net premium as well. Gotta keep that in the back of your head. I won't include that in this video. It'd be a long video, but not all net call premium spiking or net put premium spiking is always a sign. It could involve a roll on a contract. So you kind of got to do a little deeper dive if you're not very experienced. But so those Victoria's Secrets moving from 124 to 270, 117% on those. VOD. Now this was a really good, interesting one, because when we saw these, let me come back here. You can see that spot coming in above the ask with heavy size here. So let's go take a peek at this. And let's see if we can go back and find it in here. So let me pop this back. Let's see if we can go find that original big entry. So you can see all this size coming in, and you can see that IV. I'm trying to see if I can find the big one here. Let's see. Don't know if it's going to let me go back being that far. Okay. Here you go. So now, even though the IV dropped here, keep in mind this is coming in 5 cents above the ask at 98,000 contracts. So this is kind of where I overlooked that IV there, because that's coming in above the ask. Very, very, I mean, that's a pretty big percentage. I don't have the math in my head, but That's a big percentage above the ask there, and that's good premium and size. So when we come here and look, so again, 23, those running up to a high of 30. I think they hit 36 same day. Yep, they hit a high of 36 on the same day, and we even chopped around 31 that next day. But those contracts making a move from that whales above the ask buy there, from 24 to 36, that's a 50% gain same day, which, I mean, that's something that you consider very unusual when you see something like that. So let's move on here. So we have up next the 425 IBIT 53 calls. Again, this one, something on this a little longer term. I kind of like to wait for discounted entries too. Again, that comes into charting if you're good with charting. But here is your whale entry. We had a lot of ask side flow here same day. Again, you look at the 17th, majority of that carrying over. Had a little dip that same day, but then we ended up rallying back here on FOMC. So those hit a high of 179 here on the 20th. So that's giving us just a little over 14%, 14.01%. Still a good return. And obviously you can start adjusting up stops too and securing profit. So up next we have ADMA. Again, a nice move on this one too. 3,000 contracts, 117 was the fill. You can see we hit 185 here on the 20th. Actually, we hit 210 here on the 19th. Towards close, 210 there right at close. So that's 75% move there. Looks like that whale's still in. ASTS, this was our loss of the week so far. Still 34 days on those, though. Keep that in mind. Didn't see any flow on it yesterday, so we're going to have to go back with 320's close of 62, so 165 to 62. That whale's down 62% with a lot of time on these. So, again, with some of these that haven't made a move, feel free to do what you want with this information, but just keep that in mind that whale still has time on these and contracts are down. X. So again, coming to the 18th here, so 218 was the fill. These actually hit 265 same day. You can kind of see that coming towards close. Those spreads widened a little bit on X. So 218 to 265. Even chopped a little higher that next day, so enough time to, again, secure profits. NEE here. So again, this one kind of sitting about break even right now. 26 days on these, 70 put, very close to the money. 183 looks like we closed about 176 yesterday. 176, 177-ish here. So whales down about 8% with 26 days on those. And some of these I'm not going to dive super deep into. We'll dive a little deeper into our flow and charts one as well, though. All right. So next up we have TTD. Again, another, I'm going to pop this to 3 days now. So again, 520 was your entry. Kind of chopped same day. That yellow line is just the fill at that time. Gapped up that next day. Hit 611 for a high. Yep, 611 for a high there. So those contracts, again, running for 17.5%. Nice little trade there. Again, contracts look like they're still slightly up a little bit here. Whales looks to still be in with a lot of time on those. DraftKings just made a very nice move. Intraday move here, 5,246 contracts at 30. Again, we'll kind of like to look at that raw flow just to show people what it looks like. So good example here. So again, keep an eye on that spot price and that IV here. So a little wider bid ask that's coming in at the ask. Looking at that IV spikes on the way up. That spot is increasing. Spot's increasing. IV's increasing. Signs of a buy. Can see these ran same day. 30 looks like they hit a high of 47 here. Let's see. Oh, 51 here on the day. So 54% intraday move, and obviously kind of chop that next day. So again, enough time to secure profits on something like that. Datadog. So this one's a nice, interesting one. So we had the original entry here, 603 contracts at 299. So we're going to come down here back to the 19th here. You can see majority of that flow carrying over. Now pay attention to these. You're not seeing big changes in the open interest from 320 to 321. 600 contracts. This whale sold these contracts to somebody else at 3.03. So I'm going to set these as set it at a break even. Looks like the contracts are still chopping about 3 as we closed yesterday. So those whales would be down, or they'd just be slightly break even on those. So we're going to kind of go with a break even on this one, just with all that volume. Would be curious to see how much of that changes on Monday. I'm going to assume maybe this whale passed them off to somebody else because you're not seeing multi-leg here. So really interesting to see that. And they're only 1% out of the money, but weeklies. All right, let's move on here. So we had the SPY puts. These came in on FOMC towards the end of the day. Again, this was actually our entry. This big chunk came in after. So we had 5,062 contracts at 233. These actually hit a high of 412 yesterday on Friday. So 76% on those. This is our other put sell. I'm not going to stick too long on this because it's 41 days out. Whale just doesn't need Burlington to get below that 210. Not a lot of volume on this one, so it's going to be a little harder to kind of diagnose. So it'll be better to look at next week when I update the spreadsheet. NVIDIA. So again, another one where it's a little tougher in this environment. So I want to pop this back to the 20th because that's when these came in Thursday. So this is your entry. 2,600 contracts at 112. They ran up here a little bit to 124 here. You can see we hit 124 there. It's a little quicker move, but you still hit 10%. And I mean, that flow's kind of increasing here from that 112. Kind of see those little dips there, then we pop up there a little bit. Still enough time at least to hopefully get out at break even, but those did hit at least 10%, 10.71%. Same day. And then if we pop this out to Friday too, you can see it looks like some multi-leg stuff's going on in here too. So I wouldn't probably follow anything with that now. Baba puts, these made a very nice move here. Can see a lot of that ask side flow coming in on the 20th. These moved up same day here. Hit a high of 73 same day. They Baba gap down and opened up at 95 there. So those contracts moving from that 63 to 95 for again 50.79%. And just kind of looking at that net call or that call premium here, or all the net premiums. So when I'm looking at the 20th here, you can see a lot of that net call premium and net put premium, but that put volume was really up. So that's what kind of stuck out to that one for me there. And again, nice little trade there for anybody that took that. And looks like most of that's still in, actually. Only half of that carried over from the 20th. So it looks like they probably took some off there. So let's see. So now we can touch on our flow and charts play. So we had 2 flow and charts plays this week. I want to come back down to my flow and charts. So I didn't include app in here just because that gap down. But again, for app, I was kind of looking for a break, a momentum entry of a break of that 50-day to the downside, or a rejection of that 20-day coming up here. And again, for people not in Stock Hub, this is kind of how I like to break down my trades. I'll kind of put some info in here, kind of go over the flow as well, just what I'm seeing. But we're going to touch on Meta because Meta actually was a good trade. So we had a Large whale from our hottest contracts here coming on the 417-635 call. A lot of net call premium spikes over the last 7 sessions. Looked good there. And looking at the chart here, obviously we were bouncing off that 200-day moving average there the last 2 sessions. We were in a demand zone as well. RSI was pretty overbought. So, and again, I like to update this in the morning. Majority of the interest carried over. Please review the notes above and all that. And I do like to record the videos and kind of go over the breakdowns on those. So that was our meta play. So we're going to look at this. Let me come back 3 days. So this was that original whale entry. We're not going off that one because we would have opened them that next day. So we're going to pop this over to the 20th. 20th, where are you? So here's your 20th, and we're just going to kind of go with that opening price of 653 because we gapped down. We were pretty close to that 200-day. So those moving from 653 to 1355 same day. So really nice trade there. That thing shot up almost $20 immediately. That's 107.5% return intraday if you took that. Really nice play. That's the only play I took this week besides a couple scalps on FOMC. And let's finish up here. So SPY, again, nice intraday move yesterday. These are from Friday. Looking at that flow here, 310 was our entry. So these ran into close. Obviously, SPY spiked into close here, giving us a 30.65% intraday move. And last up, Visa. This one's not, we're probably not going to be able to recap this yet. Again, 731 contracts at 640, closing about 645. Whales up, then break even on those. Obviously, with some time, so can't really diagnose that yet. But again, nice little week for us there, flow wise. Quieter week with FOMC. For anybody that's interested in getting all these alerts, I post everything real time. The flow and charts trades are the ones that I'm actually taking. I may say these are good for scalping. I like these for scalping, but you have to scalp cautiously. And if you want to try unusual whales at a discounted price, I will also include that in the description below. Have a great weekend, everyone.